What's going on, everybody? Geronimo22 coming back another video. I'm going to quickly just kind of talk about some of the things that I uploaded recently and then kind of jump on the film a little bit and just show you, some of the new things that I've been working on and giving you guys a preview over here on YouTube so you guys can stay in the loop. Just know that all these books that I'm talking about, you can go download all of these books off of the shared system. Okay, so the Texas Coast version 3, this will be the final version, I think, of this cycle. I'm going to move on to work on some other style of offenses coming up here soon. But the Texas Coast version 3, you can download that right now. If you join the Patreon, I'll give you a video here just kind of talking about the updates, the new formations, the new plays, and why I did them. And then also, you can also download the book itself as a PDF and print it out. When I say the book, it's really a play call sheet. So it gives you all my first 15 situational plays, all that stuff. So that's there for you here on the Patreon. You guys have seen me kind of do that for the defensive side when it comes to the 3-4 disguise defense. I also updated, I think, my most popular defense, really the most popular scheme, the wide 9 defense version 3 is up. And you could use the custom book. You can download it. If you don't want to use a custom book, I use the Bears as a stock book. Okay. Again, you get the play call sheet where you can actually have all the play calls kind of sorted for you by base calls or passing down calls or red zone calls. So I think that's good to have. Okay. So let's take a look at what we've been doing so far on my YouTube page real quick. So you can see here, this is really kind of when you come into my page, you guys know I have a whole list up here called videos. These are pretty much the videos that I uploaded that are pretty popular, from, coverage patch information to little tidbits, things like that. That's all there for you. But really, once you get down a little further, it kind of breaks down into more detail. You have live streams. So these are schemes or scheme streams that I've done really over the past 2 months. That you guys can listen to. It could also be me watching somebody else's game, giving some information. I think the thing that's the most popular is going to be the Ravens Disguise 3-4 scheme that I'm trying to work on. You're going to see a little bit of a break here. So it says 11 days ago I did something, and then it says the last thing was 11 months ago. What I did was I pulled off those videos and I put them onto my Patreon channel. So if you go into any of my, just look at the description below, you see the link to my Patreon if you want to join. But what I wanted to do is give those guys who support me those specific live stream videos, because there's a lot of good nuggets, when you're talking about stuff. You could always learn something new from listening to that podcast type of 1 hour type of stream. Then there's also league games. So I always go in there and I post all of the good games. When I say good games, I'm talking about games where I feel like I was doing something that you can learn from. Even if it's me losing to a scheme, let's say I can't stop a certain concept, you can kind of learn from it. A lot of these games in here are from different leagues, from college, from Madden, and some of them have audio, some of them don't. When I say audio, I mean my commentary. So you're going to see some of the live commentary stuff that I do. That's in the other folder. Will also show up here if it's a game. So you can just find all the games and watch whatever helps. The Jesse Mentor stuff is here for you guys. You know about it. Okay, I kept some of the live streams that are exclusive to just Jesse Mentor here as well. You guys see the actual installs of the offenses or defenses that I've done in the past. This is exactly what it's going to look like when I make the 4-3 install defense, just like it looks here for the Jim Swartz. So you're going to get like an overview. You're going to get the coverage section, a blitz section. And on offense, it's a little bit more detailed because you have more to do. So you're going to get basically the core plays, the core passing plays, whatever it might be, situational stuff broken down into different sections. Okay, so this is what it looks like if you actually were on the Patreon and you went and you waited for that and you got that full deal. You can basically install the offense, and however long it takes you to watch the video, and then go from there. But I always put this up for you guys the year after. So this is last year's stuff. This year's stuff is going to be updated, of course, but those videos will be dropping here in the next month. And that would be good for anybody who wants to make a change in scheme, probably heading into your third season of your cycle. Okay. The reason why I wait so long to do that is also because I need to practice it. I need to do it. I can't just give you guys advice on how to run something unless I've done it. But the good thing is, if you actually are part of a scheme and it carries over from year to year, like all the schemes do, then you can always go back in the beginning of a year, like right now, and you can use a lot of the principles you learned last year, because the stuff that I'm teaching you guys carries over. It's not like it's just good for the video game. It's good for real life. Okay. All right. So now let's just jump into my last game from yesterday. Just kind of cut up a little bit of the defense, kind of talk about some of the plays that happened. I think this is something that, I like to do all the time, and give it out to the guys on Patreon as well. The actual go back and telestrate what happened in the play, what happened in the game, what was I thinking, what could be different. We can always learn from the good and the bad. Okay, let's watch the first drive of the game versus the Rams here. They come out in a bunch set. I'm going to come out and nickel over, and I'm pretty sure I'm in cover 3. Now, this play is a little bit funky when you watch it. You're going to see how the guards are pulling, and one guard pulls and the tight end pulls. It looks like he called counter and tried to flip it to the opposite side, okay? It's not going to work for you all the time. So obviously, it's kind of a busted play, but let's just talk about the structure of what I'm trying to get done. First of all, I look at the play call, right? So I'm looking right up here. Let me get my pen out. So I have circled here the formation that my opponent has come out in. It's under center formation. Okay, so I already know what front I'm going to be in, and from a coverage standpoint, in my system right now, I've kind of, I think, evolved to be able to play any coverage versus any formation. I'm not necessarily stuck on having specifics. Now, I talked about it earlier. I will have some game plan or maybe a toolbox of maybe 3 or 4 different coverages that I want to use versus maybe somebody's offense, because they do something like throw deep all game. Okay. So I will have a selection of plays versus that style. But just if I don't know what my opponent does, if I didn't get a chance to scout, my base 3 calls, I have 3 really coverage calls that I kind of hang my hat on. I'm going to use throughout the game. Okay. I'm going to just call it. So right now I call cover 3 match. We talked about it enough, but also I will use some other ones. We'll talk about it later. But the most important thing here, let's talk about the actual front. Now, against certain formations like this is an overloaded formation to the right. We have 3 receivers to the right side of the field. Okay. Get rid of this thing real quick. And what happens is, when that happens on the field, your gap responsibilities might have to move over a little bit, or you might have to make sure you're aligned correctly. So the game is going to walk around the 3 seam. The guys aren't going to get set until late. That's fine. I actually do have, I think, my front to be coverage shell to be cover 3. But the most important thing is just once they get a set, let's just make sure we know what gap we have to play. Okay. So no adjustments were made with the D-line. There was no pinching. There was no shifting. It was just leave it alone. Let it play out. Okay. Now, from a gap standpoint, even though I have both my backers kind of standing over, kind of like in the C gap and the B gaps, kind of like inside leverage of the tackles, the gap of responsibility is that when you have one back in the backfield, the way I've learned it is we want to basically go with just a gapped out approach, because we are a single high defense. So we're either going to be gapped out or we're going to have a +1. We'll talk about that later on. But right now, the open gaps are this B gap, this A gap, right? This C gap, technically, all right? And then we can work outside from there. Your 2 inside backers are always going to usually take the interior gaps that are there, A gap, B gap, okay? But in this case, since we have a safety that's walked down over here, okay, and the formation, like I said, is kind of overshifted this way, this linebacker would have this gap, this linebacker would have this gap, okay? This edge player most likely is going to be right here in that D gap area, okay? Our other nickel in this case is going to be in that next outside gap, and then he would be outside here. we have this situation now where you can say, hey, well, this player doesn't technically have a gap. Well, he kind of has just the outside exterior gap over here. And because we have a cut split, if there was a blocker that was going to block him, he needs to stay inside of that guy. Okay. Just in general, because we don't have an extra player. We have one extra player outside. But he will just be a cutback player and run away from him. If it's run at him, then he could just kind of be the free hitter. That's where you talk about, well, you have 1+ guy. Well, that would be your free hitter. Okay. And he would hopefully be that guy for you if the run is coming at him. If it's away, he just becomes a cutback player. So because the run is that way, a lot of times what I would try to do is just to spread my linebackers and try to get him to align over here closer to where he needs to be. And then I would usually try to get more into my A gap, but I probably wouldn't just abandon this area. I would probably stack right over the guard. Okay. Most people, a lot of times when they run this type of formation, a lot of it's going to be either a stretch run to the outside or could be an inside zone play. But as soon as what happened here, this guy saw that I had an extra guy down in the box. So that's the reason why he took the counter play and said, well, he wasn't really going to win with numbers. So let me try to go back to this side and win with numbers to my right. Now, Bosa makes a great play because the blocking scheme was a little bit screwy here. Because he kind of switched it up, this receiver right here had to go block Bosa. So this guy here had to block my edge defender, and he couldn't do it. So Bosa basically won. I told you that this guy pulled and this guy pulled, so they kind of canceled each other out from a run gap standpoint. The one thing I want you to do is watch this linebacker and how he kind of like gets a lot of width to start and then comes back inside. I'm okay with that because his gap technically is right here. I want him to be in this area. The backers in the game are not going to fit downhill, but at least I want them in the spot so that so they can kind of build a wall, even though it's at 4 or 5 yards, where they're not necessarily stuck in the rolling gap. And I'm pretty sure I started working over towards my A gap here with this backer. This is a long explanation, guys, but that's the first play. I just want to kind of show it to you, like how I see it. Oh, I went the wrong way. So the counter action got me without me even thinking about it. Watch my backer, right? See, who are you keying? This is one thing that happens in real life. Are you keying guards? Are you keying, in today's game, these guys are called sniffers, okay? This is an indicator. This Y off is a big part of all levels of football, especially in college. A lot of people will key this guy, and if he comes back, we all fall back. But the game does not do that. So that's a poor job by me. I should be keying the guard here, and I should definitely be working over to this side of the ball when the guard pulls. I'll talk more about that in another video, but I kind of got caught. But of course, I have Warner. He's pretty quick, so he comes back, right? And end up kind of overrunning the play anyway. Watch this backer here, how he kind of gets outside. And I know this is weird, but we'll talk about this more as we go along. I would rather him do that than to get caught inside on some type of outside zone play. All right. Technically, he's in his gap. He's just really wide, and he's not really where you want him to be firm body-wise. All right. Our cutback player here is our safety. He works. He kind of gets caught with the going back and forth, but you can see he's a free hitter here. My outside nickel went way outside. I'm not sure why. But that's that. Let me see my 3 technique. He has a tough job. He's going to get a double team. Yeah, he's going to get pushed out of that gap. I'm not expecting him to really win that, but this is a really good player for me. He does a good job of not getting washed. Like, if he was to get pushed back inside these hash marks, you'd be like, what the hell? But he's doing a good job there. So he gets 7 yards on a busted play. By the way, I'm playing cover 3 seam. If you guys don't know about this, and if EA can do anything about this, it'd be great. But like, this whole previous play call screen shows you anytime you make an audible from one play to another, it just picks a random play. A lot of times it happens to be cover 1 linebacker blitz. I'm not calling that. And unfortunately, like in this league, you can only call this play so many times. So every time I audible to a different defense, I eat up one of these 1 linebacker blitz plays. If I want to use that later on in the game, in my league, I only can use it 5 times. So I think in this game, it looks like I made a lot of changes. A lot of times I called this, but I didn't. And it also throws off the stats, I'm assuming, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. All right, he comes out in the dreaded U-off trips. This formation's worth a whole video by itself. Everybody's running it. It's basically 3-0, okay? So it's what everybody used to do back in the day where they came out and gun trips tight end, right? But now we're doing it with another tight end. He's off the ball, so he can go back. He can also, it's kind of like a fullback. I kind of see this formation very similar to if somebody was to line up fullback right here and come out in I formation twins. But obviously, because he's aligned here, he can also be a vertical threat. So it puts a lot of stress on the defense. These are one of the formations that I would potentially come up with a plan for and say, I want to run these 3 coverages to it. But for right now, we're just going to stay in our base defense. I'm pretty sure I called cover 3 on all these plays. Different versions of cover 3, but okay, so let's talk about the gaps again. Let's see if you guys can see where the gaps are. So we are, again, overloaded to this side, okay? I have my weak safety down, okay? This is my strong safety in this case. In this case, because there is a tight end in line, all right, he is not going to be an outside player. That's going to be your corner. So he's in a tough spot, but that's okay. He has time to read it out. So in this case here, this player would take the next interior gap that's open. Now, I did something here that I usually don't use all the time, but versus balanced formations where you have 2 tight ends on each side, I will call nickel over and I will pinch the front to get 2 ones. Now, you might say that's a little bit video gamey. It's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. Teams do this. What you're trying to do technically is, what you're going to end up getting is a double team to work on. You're going to get one of these guys, which can allow your backer to flow. Okay. Their gaps though actually have not been changed. So whatever their original gaps were, they're actually still the same. So, technically if he's a B gap player, this player is still an A gap player. Okay. He would have been a little bit tighter, but he's an A gap player over here. Now our safety is going to have to now become that B gap player in this situation. This is one of these formations that you always have to work with if you're a cover 3 team and they get this type of formation, your weak safety comes in the box. It's like one of the rare times that he has to become a B gap player versus a closed formation. It's one of those things you got to work on. Okay, so now what we have here is technically he's a C gap player. And this linebacker is now the D gap player because we have a weak rotation defense. So it's almost like he becomes a DB, a safety type, and these 2 guys are your linebackers. I think this is something that I'm talking about it because a lot of people who run the wide 9 defense, I learned this from Jim Swartz. You have to understand that your safeties, if you're going to run this system in general, are going to have to become like linebackers at some point versus some formations. And good offensive coordinators are going to try to find ways to motion it to make this guy be a B gap player. I think the Cowboys, when they ran this system last year and with Quinn, they had some guys that weren't ready to be in there. But the Cleveland Browns have like Delpit, number 20, he's number 9 now. But they have another safety these guys are downhill players, and that's because that's the way Jim Swartz teaches it. All right. So even though I'm standing here at Warner, I think I might move out. I have to recognize that I am pretty much like the edge defender off the ball right here, okay? And then obviously this player is outside leverage of the nickel that's in the slot, all right? So let's take a look at this play real quick, see what we get from it. But this is a really tough formation, but this defense will cover up versus every formation you can get. You should be in good shape. Okay, I don't move, but you can see how, watch my user, right? I don't start because for some reason I am thinking that the ball could come back, right? Right now we get these double teams in front of us. It looks like it's inside zone, right? The double teams are going to work off of everybody. This is not my gap to fit, all right? This double team is going to work up to me or somebody else might get me, but I need to work right here outside leverage to the gap that I just told you. I'm out here, okay? This player should be the 3 technique here, but he kind of gets reached because of what I did to him, so that's my fault, right? So because he did that, I would hope that this backer would flow over here, okay? He become a new B-gap player, all right? And then our B-gap player here, this guy's also getting his ass whooped, so you would hope that this safety would kind of come over here. Now, Madden doesn't necessarily give you all that, but let's just see what happens. I can go slow motion here. Let's go back.
We got it going, boys. Let's keep it going.
All right. So what happens is I do my job there. That's fine. It makes him cut back into this trash. This player who's supposed to be the B-gap player, all right, he gets double teamed. Double team comes off. He actually did a great job of still maintaining his leverage. This is obviously a really good player for me. And he holds up in that gap. So this linebacker never flowed over. So he ended up being lucky, ended up coming right back to him in the A gap. Or actually never even got to him, okay? But I just want you guys to see that. Let's look at the backside safety real quick. He should shuffle over. He's the backside cutback player here. The one thing is that, so when I talk about backside cutback and frontside force, it's also based off of the run angle of which the play is happening. So if this ball is going wide like this, then now we talk about he's a cutback player. He doesn't necessarily have the B gap, right? If something happens in front of him where it's not there, he's just going to be a cutback player off the inside hip of the back of the running back, but he's never even going to get there. He's probably going to be lagging him by 3 yards. I shouldn't say inside hip. That's bad. He's going to be behind it by 3 yards. He's looking for the first open gap, but he's really trying to work off the back. For some reason, like in a wide zone scheme, which is a little bit of a tighter path, I call it more of a mid zone scheme. The ball is famously known to be able to cut back or just go straight up the field. Then he would need to be right off the inside part of that guy. Okay, now if all this is happening, but if it's something else, like let's call it an inside zone play, okay, now no matter where the ball, where the back is, this player would need to make sure he fits that B gap. Okay, this is us being gapped out. This player would be that A gap or B gap player, depending on what happens with the tackle, and I would technically need to be here off of an inside path. So linebacker safeties need to learn the path of the back also changes your responsibility. Do you flow to the ball based off the running back necessarily, or do you work your gaps? And all that one back gap stuff works on plays that are hitting inside the tackles. Everything that's fast flow outside or toss, then you have just basically your run fill responsibilities, all right? Force, fill, and then if you take on the blocker, you have certain responsibilities. Same thing if you have two backs in the backfield, then you have to fit it up a certain way. You have your lever spill, lever fits if there's an insert player, okay? So all these things kind of have to happen on the fly, and you have to train them. It takes time. It's not like it's easy to just get this. It takes years for some people. But once you learn the backfield flow and then also understand which gap you have depending on which way the ball goes, you're good to go, okay? So that's just that kind of an overview. A lot of information right there for you guys. But I think once you see game film and you watch it through game film, it's better than me kind of like getting on the chalkboard and going through every single thing. Right now, during the season, you want to watch yourself play and make sure you get it right. All right. All right, let's go to the next play. Okay, so he comes out in a gun tight Y-off weak, which is a popular formation in this West Coast or wide zone scheme. McVay, Shanahan, family. Okay, so this formation is kind of a loose kind of stack, right? I call this considered compression to me, even though the game does not always consider this a compression, just so you know on the right-hand side. They will still match this up man-to-man if you let them. But I'm going to make an adjustment here. I'm basically going to call, I think I actually did call it. Nope, I called three seam, but I'm going to end up playing hard flats. Okay, so this is one of the adjustments that as you guys, join the Patreon or whatever, I'm going to start talking about some of this stuff some more. Is playing hard flats is one of your base adjustments. I think most people understand that you need to because of the shallows and drags that people like to run. But there are some other little details within it that I'm not going to give right now that can make it even better. Okay, so there's some details here that made this play better. This is not just Fred Warner playing underneath coverage. Okay, if you would notice here, watch this linebacker here. You see how he's working up, and this tight end right here. Let me draw on the screen. This tight end right here is actually working up the field and running a corner route, if I'm not mistaken. All right. This guy's running a drag. I'm not sure what's happening here. I think this is the play. I think he's going vertical. Okay, so it's kind of like it's a flood combination or a sail with a drag. And this player, a lot of people would try to seam streak it sometimes too. So watch how this linebacker goes up the field and plays with him. All right. Fred does a good job, doesn't have that much work, and comes back and makes the play. Now, he has abilities to be able to knock the ball out, but still, you can't get this if you just called hard underneath coverage, if you played hard flats. Straight up. The game won't play like this. Okay, so again, there's some little things that I'll talk about that I'll save. Obviously, I'm not going to put out for everybody, but again, I'll talk about it on the Patreon. Actually, I already did talk about this on the Patreon, on that video that I did on compression and how to get that type of reaction from your linebacker. again, you do want to have good players too. All right. So that was the play there. Okay, that's what it was. He just audibled. It was just a slant route. He audibled his tight end to run a streak, I'm sure, or an out. Okay, I'm not sure what this tight end's doing, but he's trying to open up the void that's here in the middle of the defense. All right, you see me using the safety because I'm still kind of not sure that these guys are going to do their jobs and do what I want them to do with the adjustment that I made, the secret adjustment. So I'm kind of staying over the top, looking for a seam streak. I ain't going to lie. I wasn't 100% sure, but I think I feel pretty good now that I can probably use for somebody else, okay? There is one player in particular that I think I am going to use it versus that formation type. I'll talk about that later. All right, guys. So that was just a very detailed, long, kind of like video, but I wanted to just show you all the little things that you can learn, from just kind of like watching my streams. This stuff like that I just did would be on a live stream at times, like late at night. I'll just talk football, and that's just what I do. It's just something that is fun. I hope you guys like it. And if you want to run this style of defense, I'm going to be running it forever. So this is my primary style of defense. I like the single gap fits. It doesn't work great because guys don't work downhill in Madden like they should, but I'll figure out ways to still make it work for us. All right. I'll talk to y'all later, man. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. And expect me to come back possibly later on tonight to work on some of that 3-4, the Skies 3-4. I think everybody loves it. Defense a little bit, to maybe watch some game film and then try to see what's going on the field. How can we replicate some new stuff? How can we get some new pressures? All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace.